Well, we'll get started.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're live. Jody, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Harrison. I'm so grateful to be here.
Yeah, most welcome. This is a really cool episode. Obviously, first female guest. And yeah, I've been reflecting a lot, and I realized there's so much to learn about men, and there's all these different areas which I think get ignored, right? So many different factors to our wellness, how we're living our life, that type of thing. So yeah, I guess a good place to start would be maybe we can go into the work that you do and then just delve in from there, really.
Yes. Well, my work has really evolved over the years. So in short, I'm a public speaker. And I help people with their voice, their confidence, their authentic expression. But I also work in business, abundance. I teach alchemy, which is an ancient wisdom, and I'm bringing it into the mainstream. And the thing that I'm really passionate about is emotional connection, emotional regulation, knowing ourselves as emotional beings. And so we're able to work with our body on all the different body levels, spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, energetic, and therefore live our most abundant, most fulfilling lives. And that's what I'm very passionate about also with men, though I predominantly help women more now. I have helped so many men over the years. So I'm very excited to jump into a lot of those topics.
Yeah, awesome. As you've mentioned, I think emotions is a big one, right? We're brought up not really, I think a lot of the time, we're brought up not really being taught to express our emotions, to feel the emotions. A lot of the time it's seen as a bad thing to be emotional as a man.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be a good place to start then. What are the big things that you see with men? What are the big challenges they face, and how can we confront those head on?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. It's a deep topic, actually. So there's a lot of research done around men, and I'll share a few quite confronting statistics actually around the world, right? So in the UK, for men under 50, the biggest cause of death is suicide. In America, men are 4 times more likely to take their lives. And in Australia, 75% of a suicide rate in a year was men. And it is a staggering statistic, and it begs the question why. And it's just like you said, right? Men not connecting to themselves emotionally, men not feeling safe to be vulnerable, to share their emotions with other people, to be open. And this stoicism is a very old era that we've just come from, actually. We've come from the masculine era, and we're now more in the feminine era, which is why people are talking more about vulnerability, authenticity, emotions. And in the past, men, in a way, had to embody their warrior, and the warrior was a big part of how they showed up. But now, the universe, the world, we as human beings are calling for emotional connection again. And so there's a lot of hope, but there's also staggering statistics about the reality that men are going through when it comes to emotional connection. Yeah.
Yeah, the stoicism part is really interesting to me because I remember getting really fucking frustrated. I would read the Daily Stoic, and I'm reading about all these Stoic principles, right?
Yes.
And I remember thinking, well, fuck, hang on, I lost my temper today, and oh shit, I should be calm the whole time. I need to be. And I remember I had a mentor back at my old work, and he was telling me, mate, you're human. It's okay to just be angry sometimes. You don't need to hide that away. And I was wondering what your sort of approach is to stoicism, right? Because obviously a lot of the principles, they are helpful, and they allow us to have sort of a different perspective on the world. But is there a point where it kind of goes too far into sort of the old stuff that isn't really modern per se?
Yeah, I would say with a lot of teachings, we can take it too far to one side, right? And so stoicism, there's a lot of great pillars there for sure. And to add on to that, men who don't feel safe to show emotion or to share their vulnerable side, their sadness, their anger, their frustration, that is basically them not allowing themselves to be the full version of themselves, right? And whenever we suppress parts of ourselves, we're actually suppressing our fullest potential.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think for a lot of men, all we really want to be is just be our authentic selves, right? And I think when you're 100% unapologetically you, that's when you can step into your just best version. And then once you can start doing that, you start, I think, getting more joy out of life, right?
More joy, more money, more success, better relationships, better health and fitness. How I like to teach emotions is not just through emotions itself and parts work, which we can talk about in a moment, but I really love teaching archetypal work because it really helps men and women to understand themselves more about what they're maybe needing more of the gift or medicine of, so they can step into their fullest expression of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, we can jump into that then.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people on the surface level, they'll see, oh, but emotions, but you can't get angry in public, and oh, I can't cry in front of 10 random strangers. So yeah, how can we sort of bridge that gap, and how can people sort of manage their emotions, do you think, in a way that is suitable per se?
Yeah, so the important thing to know about emotions is every single emotion serves us in some way. Every part of us, sadness, anger, frustration, guilt, shame, every emotion has a medicine, has a message for us. We don't want to deem any as good or bad, right? So for example, in IFS, in parts work, Richard Schwartz created this model, and it's essentially that there are no bad parts. There are no bad parts. And the more that we can love all of our parts, the more that in different social settings, we either know that maybe it's not the place to externally express, but we can feel what we're feeling, or we feel that, yes, this is the right space. So we have the discernment to know, because there's certain people in my life that I know I'm not 100% safe to be all of me. And that's okay, for example, family. And that's okay because I know I've got me, and I know I'm safe with all of my parts, and I know who in my life I'm able to express fully with. And therefore, on my social media, in my speaking, in my business, I'm able to be all of me, unapologetic. And so vulnerability has boundaries. I know it doesn't serve me to show certain parts of myself with certain family members, because it's not going to serve anyone. They can't handle that part of themselves, so they're not able to hold me in that part.
Oh yeah, I find this super interesting, right? But it's a good point, because you're saying, right, we should as men be more vulnerable, but then if we haven't got the safe space to do that, then I think that's where the disconnect is, right? So what the fuck do people do if they're surrounded by people who, because I speak to guys a lot, right? And the number one thing is, like, when I try and talk about this stuff, when I try and express my emotions, a lot of the time it makes other men uncomfortable, and then they sort of switch the subject, right? And I know sort of in my upbringing, it was always, oh no, oh yeah, you shouldn't feel bad, oh, okay, look, and be happy and smile. And like, what do people do when they've had not only that conditioning, or what I think the majority of society has told them is right, but then they've also got the geezers who they hang out with who just aren't really supportive of that. Like, what the fuck do you do?
Yeah, I mean, he's not paying me to share this, but have mentors like you, have spaces where the men are able to be vulnerable, able to be held in that safety, so they can build safety within themselves first, right? So our perception is our projection. Our external world is a projection of our internal world, our internal worth, how we feel about ourselves. So if we're hanging around people constantly that are unsafe, not able to hold vulnerability, gratitude bypassing or positivity bypassing, happiness bypassing, that's a signal that somewhere inside of us, we're not giving ourselves permission to feel fully safe. We're not giving ourselves permission to feel all of what we're feeling. We're shaming ourselves perhaps for not being happy or positive all the time. And so when we can shift the internal world, we will automatically, and it doesn't mean get rid of these people in our lives. Like, I don't want to get rid of my family. I love my family, right? But it's knowing that when I'm coming home to myself, I know that I don't need to prove anything by needing to express all these different things with everyone, and I know who to express it with and who not to express it with.
Yeah, that's super important. I know in my experience, because I was sort of I had this nice guy persona, right? I didn't really rock the boat. I just wanted that approval, and I wanted to be liked by everyone. And the difficulty I had was I still crave that deep connection, but I wasn't being fully authentic, right? So like you said, I attracted certain people into my life who, again, perhaps didn't create that space for me to be fully myself. So what happened was I'd be hanging out with these people, and then I'd get really resentful and frustrated, because I'm like, why won't these people have deep conversations with me? Why won't no one fucking understand me? But again, I think there's different stages to that, right? Because the first one is, right, okay, why these people don't understand me. But I think the tendency is to then look outwards and think, oh, like, what's wrong with these guys? Like, there's something. And I remember getting really frustrated at people. I was like, oh, why won't anyone get me? But it's not on them. It's always on you, right? And for me, because I hadn't been authentically myself, and I was like hiding all these emotions, when I did suddenly say something or express something, they were like, hang on, mate, what the fuck is going on here? But that part of me was being suppressed, right? And I feel like this is a big thing, a big problem for a lot of men.
Yes, so much. And I have had a lot of men that I've worked with in my career as well that have had anger issues. And that's because they're suppressing it, being around people that don't feel safe to express those parts themselves, or they're not feeling safe within themselves. And therefore it explodes. It becomes the shadow version of anger, right? Where it feels uncontrollable. It's aggression. It's outward projection. And I've been there too. I grew up with a mother who's so beautiful, so kind, but also because she didn't feel safe in her anger, when she would get angry, it would be taken out on us, right? So it was like verbal abuse, being really just negative towards us. And I saw anger as aggression. So then in my childhood, I grew up thinking anger's bad. I cannot be angry. So I became the nice girl, the fixer girl, the perfectionist girl, the one that has it all together, who's never angry, who's always happy, a positive bypassing basically version of me. And as a result of that, later when I got into my long-term relationship and I finally felt safe, unfortunately though, what happened was I was projecting my anger on my partner, right? I was basically going, oh, this part of me is finally safe to be seen. Let me let it all out. But that wasn't resourceful either, right? That was still me not feeling safe in the anger and expecting the other person to bring safety because they've got to hold it all. But actually, I need to take responsibility and go, I need to get really comfortable with the anger within me so it doesn't become outward aggression. It's just a feeling I get to process, just an emotion I get to feel and express. And then I started developing healthier forms of, anger release, being able to scream into a pillow or shake the body or be able to move the body in a way that expresses anger. And then I actually find now that I'm able to just communicate when something's not okay with people instead of projecting that anger.
Well, even that's just makes such a big difference, right? If you just put it out there, first of all, just, oh, by the way, I'm in a shitty mood today. Fantastic. And others, you release that tension or that unexpectedness, right? And then people can embrace it. And then their expectations will probably be so low. And then you'll end up probably having a better interaction, right? And again, I think just embracing that, oh, by the way, I'm in this mood today. I feel a certain way. All right, cool. And yeah, it was interesting there. You mentioned like perfectionist traits as well. I think a lot of men have that. And a lot of that, I think, does come from the upbringing and the patterns we learned, right?
Talking about perfectionism, I'm spilling water all over me. And perfectionism down the window.
Well, there you go.
There we go. Manifested that.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that. But again, this is what it's all about. This is life. And I actually think on that point, people are like, I think people will be looking at that and think, oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. Because I think imperfect people are attracted to imperfect people, right? And what I noticed in myself was I was trying to be perfect the whole time, look a certain way, have my hair a certain way. And again, that's probably another reason why I struggle to form meaningful connections, because a lot of the time people are attracted to people who are like imperfect. They have their struggles, and I think this is why authenticity, right? And if people don't gravitate towards that, then they're not meant to be in your life anyway. And I think a lot of people do struggle with that.
Yeah.
How do you think people get over the sort of perfectionism then? Because it can carry on into work. Even myself now, I notice it sometimes. And it's only recently really where I've learned to be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to put this out there, even if it's not perfect. And then perhaps it's just through evidence that, okay, the world's not going to end if people see that. Is that the approach you would recommend?
Yeah, it's definitely part of it. I want to drop some names here about Brené Brown's work. The Power of Vulnerability is her TED Talk. It changed my life years ago. When I came across that talk, I realized, hang on a second, vulnerability is strength. So even just reprogramming our mind and our body feeling safe that vulnerability is actually strength, that it's okay to feel all our emotions. We give ourselves permission, right, first of all. And part of that, The Gifts of Imperfection is one of her books, which is that we're able to, as human beings, feel safer around people that we feel we're able to be our full selves with, right? And that is the goal really of this era right now, is that we allow ourselves to attract more and more people that we can be our full authentic selves with. And that starts with being able to be authentic with ourselves, knowing ourselves, right? So how do we get started being safer with vulnerability with other people, being safer with vulnerability within ourselves? And so how we can do that is through, for example, parts work, which is knowing we are our true self energy. So you, Harrison, you are confident, you are clear, you are compassionate, you are connected, you're curious, you're these 8 C's of self. That's who you truly are. When you're feeling that, like that's your true core. And then all your other emotions are parts of you, and they're beautiful parts of you. And you get to then, as your true self, observe those parts, connect to those parts. And in a way, we get to reparent those parts. And so, for example, if I'm feeling angry, it's instead of going, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this and pushing anger down, which will later probably come up as aggression, right? It's to go, okay, part of me is angry. And then sitting with that part of me, where's that part of me in my body? And then really asking that part, what do you want to share with me? And often anger will have a lot of wisdom that might say, what that person said actually crossed a boundary. It wasn't actually okay. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you, anger, for sharing that, right? And then we feel that emotion, we let the emotion, we don't bypass it, we feel it, we process the emotion. And then, for example, we know in future, in a situation like that, we would tell someone that actually that action's not okay.
I see.
So we get the wisdom, and then we feel safer to express that by first working on that safety in the body around that.
So the idea is, right, feel it in the body, because again, we try and rationalize it with the mind, right? We always think, okay, right, this
Men do that a lot too.
Yeah, like, oh, this person's pushed in front of me in the queue, or this person's cut me off in traffic, and it's like, right, fuck you. It's like a angry. Well, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas, so would you advise then, if people have that moment, okay, because they might be in public as well, so they might not have the time to sit with their emotions, or should they actually just take themselves away for a bit? How would you recommend that in the heat of the moment?
Well, let's say first of all, it's great to practice it when you're not out in the world, and because then you can really start building that safety. So when you're out in the world, you're able to then hold yourself, right? But essentially, let's say someone cuts in line, right? And you're at a supermarket, and instead of just going, F you, why did you go in front of me? And then we're projecting that anger into aggression. It's okay, I'm feeling anger right now. Was it okay they cut in the line? No. So it's not giving a excuse that it's okay that the person maybe cut into line, but it's, well, I'm feeling anger right now. What's coming up in me? Well, maybe, let's say John, he's standing in line and another guy pushes in line, and it activated this core wound that was when John was younger, his friend would always have the limelight, would always get the first go, would always be in front of him. And so he felt less than, he felt inferior. He didn't feel valued, right? So in that moment, when someone cuts in line when he's an adult, John gets the same emotional reaction of, I'm inferior, someone's not valuing me, someone's pushing in front of me. So it's important to know where that wound has come from, or where that maybe that emotional reaction has come from, to help us heal and become stronger in ourselves. But it doesn't mean that in that moment that we wouldn't then be able to go, like, if we feel the emotion, take a deep breath, and then we go, hey, I'm just letting you know, I've been waiting in line for 15 minutes. You've just pushed in line. I'd really appreciate it if you could go to the back of the line. So we could still action and be in our power, but we don't project. We just communicate.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of frustration actually comes from not saying, this is what I've realized about myself. Okay, we're getting angry at the person, but actually I think the anger comes because we haven't told them that shit annoys us, right? I always use the airplane example, right? If someone's, I don't know, chewing loudly and they're taking up lots of space, and they're being obnoxious. I think the majority of the time, especially as guys, we don't say anything. We kind of just stare at them, and we like build it up, and then we're staring at them. And then if you actually look back at that situation, who is actually the rude one here? Is it this person who's just being himself, or is it you who's built up this huge internal resentment when you could have just actually told him what he was doing wrong? Probably not only bettered your own situation, but those of other people in the future. And maybe that's where I think the nice guy goes wrong, right?
That's right. It's, in that moment, it's okay, I'm feeling anger. If we suppress that anger, let's say we have this nice guy part of us, right? And we suppress that anger. That's not serving anyone, and we're holding that anger in. And then let's say it's the opposite. We get aggressive. That might also not serve in that moment. Maybe that person gets more annoying because they're like, well, F you, I'm going to annoy you more, right? So in that moment, it's being able to sit with that, feel the anger, process that, and then be able to communicate clearly. And be able to say, hey, buddy, we can bring lightness to it too. This is where later I'll talk about the archetypes. We can bring lightness. Be like, hey, buddy, I'm just letting you know your bag you're really taking up a lot of my space. My feet aren't feeling like it has the leg room it needs. Hey, is it okay if you move this to the side, right? And so we're able to then communicate our needs clearly, process our emotion internally, and perhaps create the change on the external as well with the other person. Win, win, win.
Yeah, happy days.
Happy days.
And it's the same for these tough conversations as well. Sometimes I'll notice that there's tension. And I think that happens as you sort of do more work on yourself and you see what's going on. And whether it's with even family members or friends, I'll notice there's tension there. And I think even just, right, it's uncomfortable. I think the instinct is to just not say anything and just hope things get better. Now,
hope things get better, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, right, just go away, sweep it under the rug, the classic. And the amount of times where I've gone, oh, I've noticed the energy's off. Can we just talk about this? Like, what's on your mind? And oh my gosh, like the energy's just shifted. And yeah, I remember when I did it last time, it was with one of my sisters actually. And I was like, right, I've noticed something's a bit off here. Should we talk about it? And we ended up having such a powerful conversation for about half an hour. And then later on in the day, she was like, oh my gosh, I feel so great. The energy's so great here. I was like, yes, because we've had that tough conversation that a lot of people just resist and just hope things magically get better. But it doesn't, right? It will always stay there.
Yeah. I mean, how disempowering is that? I'm just going to hope it all becomes better and do absolutely nothing about the situations. I mean, it's such a disempowering energy to be in. And that's where power and how we show up in the world as powerful comes from the power with being able to be with ourselves, be with our emotions, feel safe with our emotions. And for a lot of men who create this nice guy mask. It's a part of them, right? The nice guy part of them, it's a protector. It comes in before they can feel the other things, before they can take the action. And that can often happen because the men have grown up being told that to receive love, you cannot be this. And if you are this, you are disregarded from our family system, our community. And as children, all we want is love and acceptance, right? And so especially in society too, where the stoicism can go the complete opposite way, men got to be tough, they got to hold it together, they can't express their truth, all of this, then these men, basically what's happening, for the nice guy is they feel unsafe in their body to express all of who they are.
Yeah, I can totally see how that would translate from childhood into adulthood, right?
Yes.
I'm wondering with relationships then.
Sure.
Because I see this, I've had this conversation, people come up and being sort of emotional and vulnerable around women, right? I think the perception is, but if I show emotions in front of a woman, perhaps then, they're going to see me a certain way. From my own experience with my girlfriend, I think she loves it when I, have a cry and be super vulnerable, right? But I feel like in the dating space, there's this mismatch at the moment. People don't know, right, how should I express myself? What actually should I be doing here? Because I feel like there's mixed messages and it's very confusing.
Can I give a polarity kind of answer to that, or polarized answer? Yeah.
Absolutely.
One side is, and I'll talk about the facts about the men and feminine core in a moment, as well. But one of the things is yes, women in this day and era, the women who feel safe in their feminine, by the way, right? The women who are more in their masculine and they're not feeling safe in their feminine, they're going to want to be around perhaps men who aren't in their feminine either. So we've always got to look at, what type of woman are we trying to call through? Like if I'm a man and I want to call a feminine woman, a woman who's connected to her feminine, and I want to call in this beautiful polarity and all these things, then essentially, it is about being able to be more aware of how I then relate to myself, right? And how I want to show up. So in those contexts, it's so important for men to be vulnerable, to share their emotions. And the polarized point of that is the woman shouldn't hold the whole container for the man either. It's really important the man also has his own tribes, his own mentor, his own support. And so he doesn't just flood, because then the woman's not going to feel safe as well. And then the woman, what does she do? She takes on the mother role. And she feels like she has to hold the whole container. She doesn't feel like the masculine's got her. So this is where I love the polarity that, yes, the women want the vulnerability. They want the men to show that. But the woman also wants the man that has himself and he has community that has him too. So he's able to be vulnerable, but he's able to hold himself in power in that vulnerability rather than letting the woman hold it all for him and rescue him and mother him. You feel the difference there, right?
Yeah, it's almost like a codependency, right?
Yeah, enmeshment, codependency. There's a difference between being vulnerable and sharing the emotion, and then also going, you must rescue me in this moment. You must be my mother. You must, So men who haven't healed the mother wound can do that. They can attract a woman where they want them to be their mother, right? Whereas we want a woman who's able to hold that vulnerability as a man, but we also as a man want to hold ourselves and have community and other tribes, right? So that's important.
And I think the big step there is learning to be vulnerable in front of men, right?
Yes. Men that are safe, men that can hold them as well, so they're able to feel the power that the masculine core has and the safety in the feminine. Beautiful, right? And then that's going to help the polarity in women. I might share a few facts around the difference of men and women in terms of their feminine and masculine core, if you're open to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was also keen to touch on, right, okay, where's the balance then between, okay,
Sure.
being emotional to a degree, and then when
Yes.
can you then go into that sort of mothering aspect as well? And then that would probably lead into that sort of stuff.
Open communication with how both parties feel in each moment, what each is needing, and also for the woman to hold her power and be accessing her divine masculine. So she's able to also hold the man in those moments, but then not freak out and be like, oh my gosh, I am holding everything. So it's that balance between that and communicating that together. Hey, I realize that this part of me is coming up. Hey, I realize this part of me is coming up. And what the key to long-term relationships, because some studies show that up to 50 to 70 to even more percent of divorce, of marriage is divorce, right? And why is that? Lack of communication, lack of vulnerability and safety, and lack of bringing that vulnerability and safety in communication. And so if we want a lasting long-term relationship that is really going to, test the test of time, what is it? Last the test of time, you know what I'm talking about? Then it's really important for two people to come together and communicate their own wounds, what they need, all those pieces, and then be able to build safety that they can be their vulnerable selves and know that neither party is rescuing. Neither party is rescuing. They're holding that safety, but we know as sovereign beings, we have ourselves. And if we know I have ourselves, that is such a healthy piece then in a relationship, right? It's not like you don't complete me. Ooh, you don't complete me. I'm whole as my own sovereign being. I've got myself, but I also know in this moment, I need some co-regulation, please. I also need some support and some safety, please. Right? That's a beautiful, powerful stance to have then.
Yeah, that all makes sense as well. But I presume, right, because in order for us both to step into, like you say, like divine masculine, divine feminine, whatever you want to call it, best version of ourselves, that's always a work in progress, right? So I wonder, you've mentioned, okay, when someone's truly in their feminine and truly in their masculine, but what if there's a couple who, okay, like this is all sort of new concepts to them and they've both got their own internal stuff going on? How can you know, all right, this is just something we've got to work through together and we'll do it? Or, okay, what if this partner's actually not right for me? What if there's signs there that like big red flags? Because I find this super interesting as well.
Yeah. Number one thing is, as a being who I believe a lot in sovereignty and power within ourselves, we've got to get clear on our own values. Once we're clear on our own values and our own vision, we can, from a sovereign, powerful place, then be, in a way, non-projecting in those situations to go, is this partner actually aligned to my long-term values, my long-term vision? Do they actually tick a lot of the boxes when it comes to the willingness to work together? And if all of those things are ticked, then it's like, great, now we get to play. Now we get to really go into communication, support each other in the healing, but also have ourselves, instead of it being a dynamic where the values aren't even aligned and it's actually just a trauma bond. It's actually, I'm addicted to drama. I'm addicted to this emotional turmoil, but the relationship's not even a match anyway.
Oh, yeah, that really rings a bell. I think in my former sort of interactions with women, I noticed that I was addicted to a certain type of feeling in my body and I was chasing that inconsistency and I was like kind of addicted to that feeling. And that's why I think these butterfly feelings, they're actually, I've realized at the time that they're actually not an indicator, or at least for me, in my experience, it wasn't an indicator that there was something like true and lasting there. I think it was more, and I think there's a big difference between what the ego wants and what your soul wants. And that was a huge wake up call for me in my own sort of plant medicine experiences where I could transcend the ego and then look at my relationships. I'm like, oh, hang on, my ego likes this person, but my soul actually wants to be with this person. And that was super powerful. I've got goosebumps.
Yeah, me too. I love that. That landed. Wow. I really love that. It's so powerful. So when we're talking to your audience who are listening right now, we're talking to the version of themselves that's calling them forth, the best version, the one that wants to untangle from those old paradigms of, the butterflies and the being crazy in love means it's love, to going, actually, what if that is from my shadow and my ego and it's my old nervous system's, need for the uncertainty and all these things, instead of it's the soul's actual desire, right? And so I love this quote that came up the other day, which is, I don't want to be crazy in love. I want to be calm in love.
Yeah. And that was a huge shift for me. When I first met my girlfriend, I was a bit confused because I was like, usually I'm attracted to a certain type of woman, certain type of feelings. And
Yes.
when we were together, it was like, oh, I'm actually being seen, and someone's like, look, like someone actually gets me. And it was the first time in such a long time I'd actually been seen, and I felt that, and it was so calm. But I was confused on the surface level because I was like, hang on, why aren't I feeling this attraction? Surely I should have these butterflies. Surely I should have this feeling. And then what I realized later on was, okay, actually, once I think when you sort of grow up a bit, you're like, no, I don't want that fucking dopamine spike. I don't want this fucking instability. I just want a nice, calm, peaceful nature. And yeah, that's what I feel like my girlfriend brings me now. And I think that's what a real relationship brings, right? It's just, right, it should be stable. It should be calm, and you should be able to be authentically yourself, right? And I think society, at least in my experience, outward looking in, I feel like we've got this sort of messed up on the whole, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't want to judge, and be projecting like any judgment onto those situations. We're all on our soul's path and figuring these things out, right? And I've been teaching this work for years, and I'm on my soul's path still figuring, these pieces out. It's an ongoing process. But it is true that in society, it has been normalized to go after the excitement and the butterflies when, a lot of that can very much be from trauma. And our nervous system, it takes a little while for our nervous system to develop a new normal. If we grew up in a household when the normal was fighting and push and pull, and the mother was more masculine, the father was more feminine, our nervous system is used to that. That's why we attract a partner then when we don't have the conscious awareness and tools, we attract a partner who mirrors how our nervous system wants to feel from our childhood. So we might go, I don't want this, but our nervous system's actually like, I'm used to this. This is safe, but it's not actually safe, but it feels like it's safe. To actually then get to a point where we can feel calm and love and we can feel fully safe, we've got to go on a journey to be aware of our past conditioning, what we did see as normal that actually shouldn't really be the norm, to undo that paradigm and that story, and then do the work to build safety in the body in the new way forward. Like in your case with this new dynamic with your girlfriend, that you can actually have fun and you can have adventure in the calm. You can actually create the nervous system, kind of reality in a way that you get to have it all. You get to then create more and cultivate more adventure and fun and that dynamic, but from a place of calm, from a place of more, functional connection.
Yeah, and I wonder how people can even cultivate that awareness, because I feel like we go through the majority of our lives, if you're in your sort of 20s, 30s, whatever, and you think that you had a normal upbringing, you don't think that there's anything different about you, you just think, oh, well, I've had a normal upbringing most of the time, and it's very difficult, I think, to become aware of all this stuff. So how can we even start to navigate that, especially if you haven't done any type of intrinsic work before, right?
Great question. Let's say someone listening to this has not done a lot of self-development, or maybe they have done a lot of self-development. It applies to everyone. If people call it a trigger, I like to call it an activation. A part of us is activated rather than as like you're triggering me. It's I'm activated. See the power there, the sovereignty. So when an activation comes up, we've got to view it as a gift. And we don't bypass the emotion, like what I was saying before. We don't bypass the feeling and the emotional process of it, but we know there's wisdom in that activation. So if I'm, starting to see someone new and they activate something in me, instead of being like, it means that they're not the right person, it's I'm activated. I'm going to feel my emotions, use my strategies, and then I'm going to come back into my true self and look at it from a really clear point of view of where did this come from in my childhood? Curiosity is one of our biggest gifts, biggest underutilized gifts. I made a post about it the other day because I was like, a lot of people do not utilize curiosity, which is our true self quality. And so it's like, I wonder, that activation, what in that situation is a mirror to my childhood? What in that situation is something that's going to teach me a new way forward, or teach me that maybe something's not okay or something is okay? And then the more curious we get, the more that we all get activated, right? So the more that information and data we get, and we go, oh, wow, that makes sense now. My dad did this, my mum did this, and this created this story. So it's just about being curious. Like curious is a gift I want to give all of you, because once people have that tool, life becomes so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, right? I think when you view everything as a lesson or just see what you can learn from it, naturally you're just going to grow as a person, you're going to start improving yourself. And I think a lot of the time we do stay in that safety zone, right? We just, okay, right, there's everyone else has got issues. But no, like, of course I'd be angry. This person did this. And, oh, you know, this girl has problems, you know. It's,
yeah. And guess what? We keep repeating that then. We keep repeating and manifesting situations and that bring up that same reaction to us until we get the lesson.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, this person keeps cutting me off. Oh, these people keep pissing me off. These people, we're going to keep on manifesting situations like that until we finally go inwards and go, what is it in me that continuously gets activated around these situations? And then when we do the work on that, the same situation might not even activate us as much anymore. Like my parents used to activate the F out of me. Now I have so much curiosity and love and compassion for them that it doesn't activate me as much because I've done the work.
Yes. And I think also just reframing expectations on other people, you realize that a lot of us hurt and pain is because we expected other people to act a certain way. We try and control the world around us. I think that's where a lot of pain comes from. It's like, don't expect anyone to show you love a certain way or to react a certain way.
See through the eyes of innocence. Be curious about the world like we're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. I know in The Untethered Soul, they touch upon that as well, how our past will project our past onto what we're seeing now and try and like, okay, well, we know this guy's doing this because of that. And we try and make these assumptions about people. Yeah. At the same time, I think I've discussed on the podcast recently about, okay, but what if your intuition about someone is right as well? And I'm quite curious.
That's discernment, right? Then we get really good at discernment. Yeah, it's both the curiosity and being open and compassionate, and then having the discernment about who is aligned to us or not, what situation we speak up or not, how we be vulnerable or not. Like discernment with curiosity, 2 superpowers, right? Yeah,
I love that. And you touched upon manifestation there. On the surface level, people listen to that and think, hang on, that's a bit straight. Like, what do you...
Woo-woo.
Yeah, woo-woo. And that's my aim, really, is to bridge that gap because it's a very real thing.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Look, when people hear manifestation, because I teach alchemy, it's ancient wisdom. When people hear that, they can sometimes think, oh, it's woo-woo, it's spiritual. Actually, it's part of the paradigm of laws that we can all start to utilize in our life to create what we want. Manifestation is basically creating what we want. So for those people out there who are like, I don't like the word manifestation, great, call it transformation, call it creation, call it whatever you want that can get your energy behind it because it is real. And until you embrace it, you're not utilizing your fullest potential, right? So we've got to kind of humble ourselves and be aware of whenever we have an ego reaction of like, oh, that's woo-woo, I'm going to push away. Whenever we have that strong reaction, well, maybe there's a gift or there's a lesson or there's something in that for us. That's the same thing about the activation. Be curious, lean in, right? So it's really important to know that if we're, for example, on a balcony, one of the laws is gravity. We jump off the balcony, the gravitational pull is going to pull us down, right? It's the same thing. If we can understand the spiritual and the energetic laws, we can use that to advantage. I know not to jump off the balcony. Just like with this work, I know that if I do this in manifestation, it will create what I want. So the more we know these principles and these laws and these universal energies and frequencies, the more we can actually then create everything we desire into reality, right? And so I might touch on now the feminine and the masculine core piece because that is also the reality for anyone in the audience who's dating, in a relationship, or who's single. This is really great, to know is that I'm not talking about female and male. I'm talking about the masculine and feminine core, right? And so the feminine is more expressive, emotional, and vulnerable, and the masculine is more of the container of the strength, of the certainty, of the action. So when I talk about this, there are differences between the masculine and the feminine core. Right. And so one of the things is, let's say the shadow. One of the shadows of the masculine is the need to fix. And one of the shadows of the feminine is the need to control. How does this connect to the desire? The man's desire, or the masculine core's desire is to be respected, and the feminine core's desire is to be heard. Now listen to this. You have 2 people, let's say a male and a female. The female is wanting to be heard in a moment because her core desire is to be heard. But the male's shadow is to fix. So instead of being the masculine safe container and just letting her share all her emotions and her feelings and then just validating, he's like, what's happening? Let me fix it. Let me jump into doing mode. And then the woman doesn't feel heard. And then there's a clash, right? The other way around as well. The masculine core wants to be respected. The feminine, she's wanting to control. For example, she doesn't feel safe in the masculine. She wants to control, but he doesn't feel respected if she's trying to control him. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I also wonder about this because I see it as, right, you want to create that safe space, right, for women to just be themselves and express themselves. But I can totally see how the man with their ego, they're just like hearing all this stuff and then it's like defensive straight away. Defensive. What? Hang on, where the fuck is this coming from?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What can I do? How can I fix it? How can I change it?
Well, yeah. And it's just, again, I think it comes with like emotional maturity as well. I think if you sort of take things defensively straight away, then I think that's a sign, and I'm talking from personal experience here. I think that's a sign where, actually that's something to work on, right? Even if you think that someone's just talking absolute bollocks, that it doesn't matter. I think just if you can just have that strength to go, okay, right, just listen. I think this goes for all walks of life, not just in a relationship, right? But just observe. And I think there's a real power in just observing, and if there is sort of an itch to just but hang on, that's not true. I think if you
instead of reacting, being proactive and sitting with that activation and not projecting it.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Where do you think a lot of men to go wrong? Is it in that area of just trying to fix things in all of their lives, and how can they improve that?
I'll reframe the wrong to just where's the opportunities for growth, right? Because we don't want to have any judgment on those situations. But yes, for a man who has this need and desire to fix, in those situations when their woman, the feminine core comes to them, just wanting to vent, wanting to be heard in the emotions. Firstly, the man, usually what he wants to know is what information do I need to remember and how can I fix this is what comes into his mind. So it is also the woman's responsibility to ask for what she needs and to be like, hey, I really just need to be held right now. I don't need anything fixed. Can I just share? So it can start with the feminine core to express that and that agreement to come between the couple or the two people. But also then in the man in that situation, it's about being able to go, right now, all she needs is to be held in her emotions. So I'm going to provide that safe space. I'm not going to talk over her or project what's activated in me. I'm just going to let her share everything until she's complete. And he'll energetically know when she's complete. And then a really great strategy that everyone can implement straight away today that will support them is to ask permission. What do you mean, Jody? Okay. The woman shares, she's emotional. Oh, my friend Katrina, this, and that. And then he can maybe pick up that there's something that she could share with Katrina that could really support, or there's something that she could do. He wants to fix, right? But instead of just going, you should just tell Katrina this and that, he's able to go, thank you so much for sharing, my love. I can really feel your anger and you have every right to feel frustrated in the situation. I'm curious, would you be open to a different perspective? Or, would you be open to something I could feel would really support? And the couple has had an agreement that they can also say no if permission is asked for. So that moment she goes, no, I actually don't want any advice. I just want to be held. And that it's okay, that the man doesn't have to be offended by that. And he can still feel powerful as a man, that he's still helping her, but he doesn't need to fix in that situation because she's actually put a boundary in place and said it's actually okay. But he's asked permission instead of it being like, she talks, he tells her to fix. She's like, he's not listening to me. He's not hearing me. She's not letting me fix it. I'm feeling not respected as a man. Then she becomes controlling and she becomes controlling the way of like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. What happens? Fights, dysregulation, dysfunction. That's right. So ask permission. Both for the woman asking permission, has the man got the capacity to hold her in that moment and what she needs, and the man asking permission, hey, can I share this? Could I give a different perspective? Boom.
And I think that sort of unsolicited advice, that's not just in relationships. I feel like men are sort of compelled to give that all the time. And I think it's also helpful just, again, if someone comes at you with a problem, I think we'd be better listeners to other men as well, right? I think just when was the last time, if you say something to your mate, you will not believe what's just happened here. This, and this has happened. They're like, oh, but have you tried this? What about this? Whereas I think even if we can allow that space to just be heard and be like, yeah, I feel you, man. I feel it. I think that would just go a big way for a lot of men as well, right?
Oh, 100%. One of the things I love teaching, because, people see me as a public speaking coach, but no, I'm actually a voice, empowerment kind of coach in the way of helping people to understand how to relate to other people, how to connect to other people, how to build rapport, how to be a safe person. And part of that is being able to hold non-judgmental space. Both as women and, men, we can do that for the opposite sex or the same sex. It's you're sharing with me, you're opening up, you're sharing your vulnerabilities, and I'm able to validate. That makes sense. That sucks. Thank you for sharing that, right? Like that would be really hard. And just validate. No advice. Just validate. As human beings, one of the biggest things we need is just love and connection. It's one of our core needs. We just want to be heard, especially the feminine core. She just wants to be heard, right? And for men and men, what a healing container that men know that each man has himself. He's sovereign. He's powerful. He doesn't need any advice. Would he benefit? Maybe, but he can ask, the one man can ask the other man permission because he sees the other man as his powerful, sovereign being. Right?
Yeah.
That's
And
important.
I think, again, we were talking about this before, but in terms of, right, for men to sort of step into that authenticity, they need to learn to be comfortable to express themselves in front of men, but that environment back home or wherever they may be might not be suitable for that. So would you then recommend people in the first couple steps of becoming this sort of higher version of themselves? Is it to maybe even go to like men's circles or go to a safe
100%.
way, a place where you do feel safe, right?
Absolutely. We all, especially as children too, and then when we grow up, we've got to reparent ourselves. We all can be supported through co-regulation and support by the external, the interpersonal support, right? So if we're able to go, I don't yet feel that I'm in a community where I can be safe. Yeah, seek out community where you can be safe and then do the work on yourself to feel safe. So then you actually then feel safer in the communities that you didn't feel safe in to begin with. And then either we'll know that's fine, we're not judging anymore, and actually we're able to get along with our family more, or those situations more, or we go, actually, those people I used to hang out with, they're not aligned anymore. I'm going to let them go.
Well, that's a big theme I spot with some of the guys I work with as well. There's this hesitancy to grow almost because they fear, but I'm going to lose out on all these friendships. And
is it losing or is it gaining? Is it losing or is it actually empowering ourselves to become the highest version of ourselves? Right.
Yeah, and that was a big lesson for me. I was trying to hold on to these relationships where sort of we had a great time like partying or whatever back in the day, but then you kind of grow as a person and you still try and hold on to these, but it's okay. Just, there was a time in your life and that's cool. It doesn't mean you have to sort of break up with them. It has to be this big thing. It's just, all right, cool. I'm growing, and if people want to be here on the journey, great. If not, that's also cool as well. Yeah. No judgment.
Absolutely. Coming from that curiosity space and that discernment, that non-judgmental space, it helps with everything, whether it's letting go of relationships or choosing new relationships, right? It's just knowing what's for our highest good, what's for everyone's highest good, and following those values, knowing that vision. It all comes back to what we've spoken about. And I think a piece I really want to mention here as well is maybe I'll close off the feminine, masculine core piece, and then I'll open up into the archetype piece, because I think that would be really beneficial for the men and also the women listening to this, episode. So we talked about the desires and also the shadow. Now, the fear of the masculine and feminine core is this, okay? It's so interesting. So the woman desires, the feminine core, I should say, desires to be heard, right? And all of that. And her biggest fear is to be too much. So if she has a man that's constantly trying to fix and isn't just giving her a safe space to be all of her, she feels too much and it activates her core wound and fear of being too much. On the flip side, I wonder if you can guess. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Why?
What do you think is the masculine core's greatest fear?
The greatest fear? I think not being appreciated or respected. That would be my
It's
guess.
Connected. Yeah, you did so well. Well done. It's actually that the man isn't useful and helpful. His greatest fear is that he's not useful or helpful, not valuable, right? Which therefore he's not respected. He's not valued. So the man's the masculine core's greatest fear is that he's not supportive, he's not useful, he's not able to make a difference, he's not valuable. And so this is where his need to fix comes in, to prove. See how it all relates, right? Yeah. And then his need to be respected in that power. So this is where knowing that feminine and masculine core elements and polarity really supports us to have healthier relationships, open communication with non-judgment. And instead of it being like when we have an argument, it's me against you. No, it's us as a team always. And it's this middle playing field that we get to become curious about, to go, where are our parts and our patterns and these core fears, needs, desires, shadows are playing out? As a team, always, how can we unravel and help each other heal and figure out this middle ground that's going on? And that's why knowing those pieces is so supportive.
Yeah, 100%. And again, when you put the emphasis on the team, it also can help to take the ego out of it, because I feel like a lot of the time the tendency is, oh, you did this, and it's a battle of the egos, right? And
battle of the egos.
if you're just focusing on the team, then, and even I think the core values thing has helped me as well, where, okay, right, you agree on your values together, and then you realize you agree on those. Okay, right, we're in sync. Okay, when something's out of alignment, oh, hang on, it's not about, oh, you did this to me. It's like, hang on, we agreed on this together. It's almost, oh, you're doing this to yourself in the relationship, right?
Yes. If the values aren't aligned and spoken about in a relationship, when all that stuff comes up, it almost becomes an excuse then to basically want to leave, because deep down we know we're not aligned anyway. And so we'll attract the fight, so we have a reason to leave, because deep down we know the values aren't aligned. And that's really dangerous territory of a lot of suffering. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So we know that there's going to have pain in a relationship. That's just what happens. We mirror each other's stuff. We mirror each other's wounds. There'll be pain there, but there can be so much pleasure, especially when we know two people come together, their values are aligned. Their vision is aligned. These things, how we support each other's love languages is aligned. We're both able to and want to communicate better. Fantastic. Now the games begin. We get to have fun with this. We get to have more pleasure in the pain, because we know we've got each other. We're on the same team. Right. And so as much as we would love to think that if we don't talk about the values, it magically will just align. It's like clear is kind, as Brené Brown explains, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And some people think, but I don't want to talk about the values because then I'm worried they're not aligned. Well, that's the whole point.
Right.
And that is where we get to feel we're enough. We get to be sovereign and knowing, even though I might have a beautiful connection with this person and it's fantastic, if we're not going to be happy long term, we've got to get clear about that sooner rather than later, right? And values can shift. So it's not just like, oh, everything's not ticked, so I'm just going to end it. No. There's curiosity, there's discernment there. We'd rather know sooner than later, so we can let go of that person and then start to attract what is actually more aligned for us long term.
Yeah, and you can translate that into all parts of your life, right? Just step into your authenticity. Don't try and change yourself to fit in.
Yes.
And then naturally the right people will gravitate towards you. So yeah, relationships, absolutely. I always say this, it came up in a conversation yesterday. I think Models, that book by Mark Manson, I think it should be an absolute must read for all men. It's about, absolutely. On a first date, the tendency is to be needy and to change yourself in order to be liked by the woman. And the mentality is, oh, does this person like me? Whereas it should be, is this person the right person for me, right?
Yeah. That's power. That's sovereignty. To be honest, a lot of the times when we're living a chaotic life and blaming everyone else, it's because we are not holding ourselves in our sovereign power and feeling enough and feeling worthy and feeling lovable. And we're just projecting those wounds onto everyone else. Right? That's why we've got to take responsibility, heal the mother and father wound within us, heal the childhood stuff, do the work. If people listening to this want to manifest more money, more abundance in their life, healthier relationships, their business or career that's succeeding, they've got to do the inner work. Our inner world is what creates the external world. There is no way around that. That is a universal law. So perception is projection, right?
Yeah, and this is where I think the synchronicities and everything just comes to fruition. I think when you do feel that sort of sense of self-love and joy, I think you'll start, that's where you become so in tune with everything. And that's when I think you can start just manifesting stuff into existence. And it's just, you're just so aligned, and
it's magic.
It's crazy, right?
It's so cool. Like now, I've been able to triple my income, move to a whole new country, attract the most incredible tribe so quickly. My health and fitness has never been better than ever. Like just having so much fulfillment in the work I do, such a balanced life. And people are like, how do you manifest all of these pieces being a tick, 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 tick? And it's because I've done the inner work for years. I've done this work and now it's just flowing and flowing and flowing, and it just gets easier and easier and easier. And it's just magic. And part of that is because I do a lot of archetypal work with myself. And that is essentially helping me to become such a balanced and sovereign being where I know when my warrior needs to come out, but I know when my mother needs to come out. I know when my soft maiden of innocence and fun needs to come out and my playful side, or when my wise oracle woman wants to come through. So because I know myself so deeply, I know what situations are for me and what are not, and I'm able to realign, keep being in frequency to what aligns to me, and therefore create everything I desire with so much more flow. And everyone can do this. I was not born from my mother's womb with some magical ability. I learned this, right? And for men too, there are masculine archetypes as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Even speaking to guys on the podcast, it goes for all areas of their life, but it's just ordinary people who have, taken the time to do the work on themselves and done hard things, right? And it's doing the hard things that will get us results.
Yeah.
And then we were going to touch upon sort of authenticity and stepping into the best version of ourselves as well. It sounds like you've done a lot of work in that area too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the gifts I feel as my own unique speaker voice with what I teach around speaking, communication, relating, connection, it's about radical authenticity, radical vulnerability. Then we will attract our tribe. We'll be able to show up in all situations. We're much more aligned. And when we know ourselves authentically, we also know when in certain situations, we don't have to show certain parts of ourselves. It's okay. I know I'm enough. I don't have to prove anything. So in that situation, it's not going to serve anyone if I did, say this or do this. I think what I'd love to talk about, because there's a majority of men who listen to your podcast, is there are different archetypes that men can tap into to gain the gift and the medicine. And especially the men who see themselves more as the nice guy and the people pleaser, or the one that puts their needs last, then they might be needing certain archetypes I'm about to share more than others, right? So if I talk about archetypal work, it's one of my biggest passions, and I help a lot with feminine archetypes, but I've also helped men with the masculine. And it's based on, it's from years and years, it's ancient wisdom. But Carl Jung, did a lot of work around this and talking about the psyche and how we have universal internal patterns that we all play out, and that we all can actually, when we become more conscious about them, utilize them to our advantage, to what's going to serve us. And the 4 main masculine archetypes that I'd love to touch base on here is the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. And so for some nice guys, they might be a lot in the lover. I'm going to give and be so compassionate and be so soft and be so nurturing and like be in the feminine, almost like the nice guy who's people pleasing and giving. But that's more from the shadow. That's the lover shadow that we're over giving, because the true lover shadow can both receive love and give love in a beautiful balance. So he's living out that shadow, right? So what he might be supported with is healing that shadow, getting the gifts and the medicines of the lover and the ability to connect. But also maybe he needs a little bit more of the king that holds himself in his own power, the king who knows himself in his own sovereignty. He's got his own vision, his own values. And so he doesn't people please because he knows when to be giving and kind, and he's so compassionate. He's able to be the lover in the situations, but he will not disregard his own vision and values. He holds himself in high regard. So he knows and respects himself. That's the king energy, right? And then maybe he's the nice guy and the people pleaser. So he puts all his own priorities in the back burner, what we call it, in the backlog, whatever that saying is. And he's not taking the actions. He's procrastinating because he's over giving to everyone else, and he's just sluggish and he has no energy because he's over giving, and all these patterns. He maybe needs more of the medicine from the warrior who shows the F up. He does the thing. He actions. He makes his desires into reality. So maybe the warrior is going to serve him more, right? Or maybe you have a man who he's the nice guy, but over giving because he's too much in the warrior of doing for everyone else. And his medicine is going to be the magician. Like you mentioned plant medicine before too. Like, he's able to be with himself an emotional level, on a spiritual level. He knows himself. He's able to sit in silence. He's able to sit in his own power, and he's able to be with himself in silence, so he can hold that masculine container to both men and women in silence as well, right? So you see how, like, when we are able to embody all of these archetypes, and I only mentioned 4, there's so many, in balance, we're so powerful. We're so powerful.
Absolutely. And I guess it all comes down to finding that balance. That was the biggest lesson I learned. And I don't actually think that balance exists, because that would imply we're living in a perfect world. But I think if we can
Yes.
bring them all up and, notice the signs that, other parts of ourselves do need to come more into that balance. How do people sort of start noticing those signs in your experience? How can they think, okay, you know what, I need to be more of a magician or a king and all these different things?
I love that you brought the piece about balance, because we live in the 3D world, right? So there's got to be polarity. There's got to be like push and pull in order to grow and expand. Like human race has shown that a lot, you know, with experiences. And when it comes to balance, it's not like, oh, in my day, a quarter of my day, you know, is this much magician and a quarter of my day is this much warrior. It's not like that at all. It's knowing energetically, intuitively, what is needed in what moment and flowing with that, right? So for a man whose woman is about to be attacked by an animal or another person, his warrior wants to come out. He wants to freaking come in and protect her, right? And a woman who hears that, like a man that wants to protect her, she's like, oh, she melts. Like, oh, I've got a man who's protecting me. Like, I can just be my feminine. Like, it's beautiful. It's so nurturing for a woman to have that, especially a woman, for example, like myself, where I was very much in the masculine in the past. I didn't let men hold me. I didn't feel safe with masculine to hold me because I had to hold myself. I wasn't able to be vulnerable. And now I've really learned that I really let the man lead. And I even expressed that, like, you know, I really don't want to make this decision. Like, I would love you to lead and make that decision. I'd love to just be soft and go with the flow. And, you know, and so I would say for a man to know how to balance that is just to know in each moment, ask himself, what is needed most here? Is it the warrior? Is it the magician? Is it the lover? Is it the king? And the more we practice that, the man can become more discernment and curious and bring that forth in whatever moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think just even researching on these different areas themselves as well. Yeah. And we've got so many resources now. So
there's literally a book called The King, Magician, was it The King, the Warrior, the Magician, the Lover, right? That's by Moore and Gallett, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And there's so many books. Yeah, you can read about the Carl Jung theories as well, about archetypes, and really just go deep into that research. But what I don't want people listening to this podcast do is they over intellectualize all of this and they just read for the sake of reading. I'm talking about embodiment. I'm talking about processing it, feeling it, coming into the body, doing the inner work. Because otherwise the man I've read the book, so now I know. You don't really know until you're living it and you're expressing it and you're being it.
This is an important point, because I hear people say, oh, but you know, you can get book summaries now and you can use this. And it's like, it's not about how many fucking books you can read, mate. It's about, right, study these books, think about how it applies to your own life, and then allow time to actually practice it in everyday life. And I think I love that in terms of this, you know what, there's this ideal, this best version of myself. Let's create that right now and start fucking acting like it and start stepping into that. And just, you know, rather than, okay, this is something in the future. No, just start embodying it now. Think, right, what are the patterns that no longer serve me? And right, when this thing comes up, how do I want to act? And and then you just start fucking doing that. Start doing it now. Yeah, there's going to be resistance there. And some people can be like, oh, you've changed. All right, cool. All right, fine.
Great.
I'm changing. All right.
Awesome.
Cool.
I'm developing. I'm growing into my best version of me. Yay.
Yeah, I love that. There's been so many gems from this episode. I think we'll go into the closing traditions now, unless there was something you think that has to be mentioned, which we haven't covered already. I appreciate it's just an endless list of stuff, right?
Oh, isn't it powerful? I would recommend, there's two things. I'd recommend someone re-listen to this and really sit with themselves with what can then be integrated and embodied from what we've been sharing. I don't just want this to be another podcast where they hear it and they're like, that's cool. I want them to actually go, now what can I embody from this? What can I bring into my reality through this, right? Because there's so many pieces here. If people even just integrated and lived out the curiosity and discernment gifts, going to make their life so much better already, right? So that's the first thing. And I think the second thing I really want to mention is what you shared there about someone saying, oh, you've changed. I want us to bring compassion too for those people who are projecting their fear on us for changing. Because guess what's happening in those moments? I heard it from another podcast recently. What's happening in that moment is when they're saying, oh, you've changed, they're saying, I'm mourning the death of the person that I had once loved. I'm needing to now let go of the version of you that had connected to me, served me, been in my world for a long time. And so when people are saying, oh, you've changed, they're really yearning for the certainty of the person we used to be. Does that mean we keep being that version to give them that? No, but it does mean we can have compassion that they're actually mourning the death of our old self.
And that energy bombed that you formed before, that's what's being broken, right? Because that's the energy that you had bonded on previously. Yeah, I think compassion's a really important one. I think it's very easy to resent those people, especially when you're on that path of growth. You think, well, I'm better than these people, and oh, fuck these guys. Whereas actually, no, that's not what. I always bring it back when people say, oh, what would you do in this situation? Say, okay, what would your higher self do? It's not what I would do. It's like, what would your higher self do? Right? That's why when I work with people, it's okay, it's not about me. Okay, just talk to yourself. All the answers are there. What is the best version of you in your head? Start embodying that right now. What would he do? And I think we get wrapped up in these surface level details, right? Oh, should I have done this or this? It's like, whenever we come across these moments, oh, should I text this person? Should I not? Should I have talked to this person on the spot or not? Should I have done this? It's like, okay, what's actually going on here? This is the surface level thing. Let's peel back the layers. What's actually going on here? You're not giving yourself permission, right? And I feel like that's super important.
And I love that in the work you do, Harrison, because you're not disempowering people by having them rely on you. You're empowering them to have them come home to their own power, their own truest high self, right? Because if someone's constantly asking, what would you, and you constantly answer that and not let them come into their own power, they're going to outsource their answers and their power to a coach, to a mentor, to other people, right? You actually go, well, I'm going to support you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to be here. I'm going to show up for you as a mentor, as a coach, as a guide, to come into your own highest self, your own wisdom, your own intuition, your own deep knowing, right? And you're going to share the tools that they don't have. You're still going to help them and give them the pieces, but you're also going to then help them utilize that to just come into their own answers. That's empowerment. Yeah.
I think it's super important. And again, it was a huge pattern for me. I'd always just ask other people for permission. I wanted to do something. Oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about, it's just like, no, hang on a sec. Right. That's what the old me did. And you've got to sort of take the lead now. Again, we're talking about these, I know you don't like the word triggers, but these activations, right? I think whenever they happen, that's almost our 7-year-old self, 6-year-old self, wherever they may be from. We've got to, again, as the highest version of ourselves, I think we've got to be perhaps the role model that we needed when we were younger. We've got to really be that person now, take them by the lead and show them the way, show them, okay, you know what? Okay, it's actually a safe world out here. Don't worry. And this is a big thing, it's like a lot of the time we take things personal when people sort of attack us or think stuff about us. But for me, it's impossible to take those type of things personally, right? Because you just know where it's coming from. It's coming from a place deep within themselves. And the bigger their ego, it's usually because they're protecting their own inner child. So you just see that people are literally just children and adult bodies, right?
They really are. And the more we have understanding of ourselves in that way and what our parts need, and having the compassion for ourselves in all of who we are, then we're not projecting that insecurity on ourselves on other people either. So for example, when I used to have this perception that anger was aggression and it was bad, if someone would get frustrated, angry in any way, I would just literally, I couldn't handle it. I'd be like, make them happy or get them to stop or go away from that. I couldn't even be around it, right? Whereas now I love my anger part so much, I don't project it as aggression. So when I see someone who's angry, I'm able to sit with them, be with them, witness them, and not be activated. And it's the key, right?
That's really interesting, because I feel like we have a tendency, surround yourself with positive people. And of course, that's where we're going to naturally be pulled towards. But at the same time, it ties back in with what we were discussing about control. You can't control it. Maybe you're going to a family event and someone's partner is a bit aggressive and maybe you perceive their ego as too big. But I think if we manifest their reactions in advance, and that's what we're going to perceive, right? Whereas if we can have the power to be like, okay, this person's going to be angry or this person's going to say this. And if you have the power to just not react, then that's super empowering, I think, because it doesn't matter what the external stuff is. We can't control that. And I think if you really start to embody that and just activate that sort of joy and peacefulness inside, then it doesn't give a fuck if you're, and I think that is quite a long way down the road. I think that is quite advanced. I certainly wouldn't expect, for me, it took a while to get there. And even now, it's a never ending process. There's still times where I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Why am I reacting this way? Yes. I think just having that curiosity wherever you're at, because I think the second, and again, I think this was me so many times. Yeah. So I just thought I had life figured out. And yeah, everyone else is just here and I'm here.
Oh, isn't that beautiful when we, have the ego in our way protecting us like that? Whenever we feel like people are below us in any way or less value or whatever else, then I mean, that's us protecting a part of ourselves that doesn't feel enough, right? Doesn't mean that people aren't maybe further ahead with certain developments or certain skill sets, yes. But whenever we're like, oh, they're below me and I'm this, and we've got to see people as equals and that we're all just on the journey of gathering different amounts of skills around certain things, but we're all equal as human beings. You know, there's not two babies born into this world and it's like, this baby is more valuable than this one. Imagine us doing that. How sad, right? It's not about invaluing anyone, but it's about going, maybe these people I don't hang out with because they're just not aligned on the values level and the self-development level that I'm, needing right now. But I'm not going to put them down or think they're any less than. I'm just choosing to hang out with these other people because they're more aligned. And that's a beautiful non-judgmental space to come from. Yeah.
I love that. And on the judgment piece as well, I've noticed where initially I had this judgment about someone, oh, they're this, they're that, they're that. But that really limits our opportunity to learn. Now, throwing around the same people, when I remove those preconceived ideas of them and I listen, I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Like, they've actually, when I've removed that perception of them, it's interesting what they're saying. They've got a really interesting point of view there.
Yes.
And, okay, I wonder why he thinks that. And again, it comes with that curiosity piece. Whereas if we've got this preconceived idea of, oh, this person's a cunt or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, the instinct. It's just like, okay, well then that energy is just going to dictate how you feel, right? Whereas if you just remove that and be like, okay, and actually listen to what they're saying, and then you realize, okay, right, you might not energetically bond with them, but actually turns out they're an expert, they're a financial expert, or maybe they've got a really interesting skill to them. And okay, wow, when you peel away the layers of the ego, okay, this guy's actually really intelligent, or he's a big expert in this type of thing. So why would you shut that part of you off, right?
Oh my goodness. I love that, because when it comes to career progression, life progression, whatever progression, if we're constantly just judging someone straight away and be like, and I'm not going to even associate with them, I'm not going to associate with them, there could be a gift or a lesson or a learning or support in that person or with that person in some way or form that could actually have unlocked a whole nother level of our lives and of our careers, of our experiences, right? That's why everything's relationships, but the most important relationship is with ourselves. And the more compassion and more connection, the more safety we can build around all our parts, all our archetypes, all of our shadows, all of that, because we were consistently activated, done this work for years, and I still get activated. It's just part of the journey. The more we can bring that calm then and that non-judgment within ourselves, the more that we actually just see through the eyes of innocence, through the eyes of a baby, through the eyes of curiosity with everyone. And like you said, instead of just going, no, don't like that person, it's, yeah, I can see where their wound is playing out there and their ego is a bit there, but I can also see this beautiful part of them is actually very caring in this area or very intelligent in this area. And how beautiful to see the world in that way.
But I think it all comes down to love. And I think as men in particular, we're very resistant to showing that side of ourselves, like we were talking about before. I think if we just show love in all these different aspects and just show love to people, I think it can be scary at first. You're like, oh, I'm just showing love to the world. And I've noticed this as well. It's funny, just like I'll go into like new jiu-jitsu gyms, like commercial gyms and stuff. Yeah. And everyone's just like, it's very cold and serious. And I'm like, I try and just show love to people. I just start spreading it. It's like, hello, come on. And sometimes it just takes one person just like coming in there and it changes the atmosphere, right? And for some reason we conform to this like coldness and seriousness. Yeah. It's like, love doesn't have to be fucking serious. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that's just me, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, that in that situation, it can be either as well, right? That sometimes it's certain environments, maybe it is about not having the joker and that lover energy, and it is about being more in the warrior, more in the thing, right? And then in other circumstances, very much because there's this expectation that's got to be this way, or people aren't letting themselves connect to that more maiden, more lover energy. So it's having that discernment again, right? And in maybe bringing that energy and giving people permission to step into that new part of them, or it's certain situations maybe we don't have to bring in that particular archetype and it actually needs to be a different frequency, right? So that's also important. It all comes down to discernment at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think this, before we do go on to the traditions, that was such an interesting part though, knowing when to show these parts of ourselves and when not to. It's a really, I think it's a very tricky one because I would always encourage, right, just be fucking authentic. You know, it doesn't matter. But then I think some people, especially when you turn on sort of the business hat, for example, I think that's just how the world works. You do have to learn whether to, okay, right, maybe we sort of turn it down a little bit, or maybe we sort of adjust to a different type of energy.
Yes. And that is being radically authentic, actually, because that's being so authentic that I know myself that in this circumstance, this archetype, which is still me, comes out more than the other. It's, you know, some people, what they do with that radical authenticity piece is they think that means be all of this particular archetype in every situation, even though it might not be socially aligned in that moment, or it might not serve anyone in that moment to be that specific archetype in that situation. So radical authenticity to me is knowing in what contexts, what parts and what archetypes are actually going to best serve for everyone's highest good. That's still being authentic. It's just showing one part of ourselves more in a certain situation than another, but it's still being the full expression of us.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, there's been so much value from this one for many different reasons. And I think that was a great way to sort of bring the conversation to a close. What we'll do, we'll move on to the closing traditions. Then, so we've got 3 usually.
Okay.
The first 2 are sort of routine. The third one is asked by a member of the Growth Voyage community.
Oh, okay. Let's do it. So, fun. Okay.
Yeah,
he didn't tell me this in advance. So I don't know what's going to happen. Go for it.
Well, the first question.
Yes.
The first question everyone finds the hardest.
Okay, gosh.
And it's a song suggestion.
A song suggestion. Oh, there are so many song suggestions. I'm going to start with This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. This Is Me is a song where it's about that really showing those vulnerable and those imperfect and those real sides of ourselves. This Is Me is a song that I play when I want to remind myself that vulnerability is strength and it's safe for me to be all of me and I'm okay and courageous enough to be all of me. So This Is Me is a great song that's just like, this is me. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
That was that one, right? Am I thinking of the right one?
I don't know what that tune was. Can you keep singing?
This is me.
Yeah, they're from The Greatest Showman. Like, So look out now, here I come. It's like, this is me. That one. Yeah.
I love that, and this is why I asked for the song suggestion, because I feel like it does reveal a lot about someone's. Just everyone's got like a reason why they bond to a certain song, right?
I've got so many songs that are in my head right now. I started singing one. I was like, that's not the one I'm going to share because I think this one was more on point with the messaging of today. Great.
Wicked. Second one we've actually touched upon already in this episode, but it was a book recommendation.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I have so many book recommendations as well. You have got the one about the archetypes. I might just mention that one again, right? So the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover could be a great starting point for a lot of men wanting to learn more about the archetypes and how to tap into that for themselves as well. But yeah, there's a lot. Any book from Brené Brown's a really great way to be more vulnerable and more connected to that strength within vulnerability and the gifts of imperfection. So that's also a really powerful piece as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely check out her work as well, especially with the like imperfection piece that we talked about earlier as well. Yeah, super important.
Okay, community question. All right, bring it on.
Let's get it up.
Community question, Jody. Why do you not know how to drink water without spilling it on yourself? There.
Hey, that's it's all authentic. It's all celebrated here.
Yes,
it's all,
thank you. Safe masculine container and space for me to be the imperfect feminine.
Yes. This is what I do.
Yes. Comes naturally.
All right. Ooh, okay, this is great. Okay. So this is from Alex Bull.
Okay. Thank you,
and
Alex.
He says, when do you feel most free?
Oh my goodness. When do I feel most free? The moment after I do something that took a lot of courage. Freedom to me is on the other side of expanding that comfort zone. Freedom to me is when there was something that scared me, that was really allowing me to go into new edges and be vulnerable more than I've ever been, to show up with courage. And afterwards, I knew I survived. I became stronger. I grew as a person. That is freedom to me.
Yeah, that I think that's what the key message is from here. When you do take the risk, when you do the scary shit, the hard shit, on the other side of that,
and the inner work is scary.
It is. Of course, no one wants to do it. No one wants to acknowledge it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Boom.
That's great. That's wicked.
Thank you.
And I really think on that point, we can all be free. We can all create that heaven in our reality right now. A lot of people think heaven is that's something after life. I think it's right now. We can create that. I mean, this is what we're doing.
Oh,
right?
Baby, do you know what that's worth? Oh, heaven is a place on earth. Heaven's in our body right now. We get to have that freedom, that full expansion, that creative, just beautiful space of lightness. When we're able to do the inner work, we create everything we want on the external. We have it all. That's heaven on earth. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jody, this has been awesome. Where can people find you if they're interested in the work that you're doing?
Yes. So at the moment, I'm growing Instagram even more. It's really grown over 1,000 people in the last only few weeks alone, which is just wicked because I built my whole business on Facebook and LinkedIn. They can still reach out there with Jody Dontje. They can find me on those platforms. But feel free just to message me on Instagram. Instagram is a great place. They'll put the links, I'm sure, in the show notes. But also I have my website, www.jodydontje.com. They can message me straight there. Happy to have a chat with them, how I can support them with the different programs and online courses and the offerings that I have. But we are going to be upgrading that website soon as well. My team and I are very excited this year. We've got a lot of exciting new things to be birthed. So send me a PM on Instagram, and if not Instagram, website or Facebook or LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Yeah, awesome. I look forward to seeing all the stuff that you're doing, and thank you so much for today. I think this has been, like we said, I think the first episode with a female guest, and based off of today, I'd love to do more of them. I think we can learn so much about men, and I often think women know more about men than men themselves a lot of the time. So much value from this, Jody. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Harrison. I love the work you do. I feel everyone who's listening to your podcast, just they would be honoring so much the work you do as well. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Most welcome.
Yay.